the main goal in all would have to be able to remove the word Satan from every man's tongue and just become it.
Now, I know what you're thinking here. Gorgoroth? Aren't those the Norse core clowns who spend more time swilling from wine glasses to manufacture labored pauses so they can make the utterance of the word Satan seem less like the recalcitrant assertion of an edgy preteen and more like an ominous and spooky declaration of one's devotion to a fucking fictitious entity? No. That would be the crater-faced cunthood by the name of Gaahl, a man who provided subpar vocals on less than one half of the band's output, but whose media-mongering and crime fiction exploits are such that he is nevertheless repeatedly identified with a band he arguably attempted to destroy. But oh, we'll fucking get to that. As always, check the description for a time-stamped table of contents if you simply must ingest that rant right the fuck now. So why this band? Well, because at its best, Gorgoroth merged the melodic edge of latter-day Bathory with a parrot being chainsawed in a Cessna while a cement mixer plunges a backed-up toilet sound all its own that I wouldn't change a note of for all the hacky sacks in the Pacific Northwest. On today's episode, it's time to tear away the TMZ trappings all too eagerly lapped up by the oblivious cunts at Vice.com and explore the musical legacy of the almighty Gorgoroth.
What were your ambitions when you first founded Gorgoroth almost 20 years ago?
My ambitions was to do what I like most, to play and perform metal music, and to do it as good as I was capable of doing. Making me able to tour and make a living out of it. And
Did you envision for once that Gorgoroth would take you to the place where you are right now?
What I was wishing for when I was younger, that's just speculation, but I would be happy to know then that I would be able to do what I'm doing today then.
Gorgoroth was the brainchild of guitarist Infernus and a wildly underrated black metal vocalist by the name of Hat. And before you collapse into whooping guffaws of laughter over the fact that Gorgoroth was co-founded by Satan's haberdasher, it's Norwegian! For Pussy Willow. But the man can scream! Along with Mayhem's appropriately named Dead and the godfather of the second wave himself, Bathory's Quarthon, Hat's harrowing Ringwraith howl is one of the rarely acknowledged formative influences on black metal vocals going forward. And before the 9th Armchair Orca Brigade chime in with screaming, "Takes no talent, bitch," take it from someone who's done it, there is a technique involved. Black metal vocals are not a simple matter of opening your mouth and saying, ah. They're a matter of opening your mouth and saying, yeah! Honestly, I always found it odd that his successor was the one who went by the name of Pest, because for my money, whenever I listen to the dulcet tones of Mr. Millinery Metal, that's when I picture some satanic fucking bug crouched in the corner of the room, spewing black metal bile. Shortly before I wonder aloud to myself if that was really an aspirin I just took. Look, along with bassist Kietar and a percussionist whose porn collection has got to be illegal in every continent on planet Earth by the name of Goat Perverter. Hey, black metal's about a lot of things. Subtlety ain't one of them, bitch. The lineup tore out of the gate with 2 exceptional demos paying blatant homage to the likes of Hellhammer and the hallowed Bathory, while chiseling a sizable portion of the sound away for a unique demonic dirge all their own. No black metal band prior to this had embraced the more melodic edge of the genre with even remotely convincing aplomb. Hat's vocals positively shear through the mix, and Infernus's ghoulish guitar craft positively rends the fucking air. all killer. Not one lone instance of fucking filler. Pentagram is one protracted peak that ends on a note every bit as strong as the one it opened with, a black metal benchmark. Buy it.
I'm Infernus Gorgoroth. I've been asked to introduce my band to you, and the current lineup today consists of Grim on drums, Pest on vocal, Ares on bass, and me on guitar. Except from one gig we did in another vocals in '94. It's the first time we are touring through Germany.
By the second effort, dissension had already begun to foment within the Gorgoroth camp. Fuck, if we're being real, it began on the band's inaugural tour, with Emperor Axeman Samoth leaving for the more temperate climes of his own band, and Goat promptly replaced by Satyricon percussionist cum Dracula cape enthusiast Frost. By the Antichrist era, the four-piece had devolved into a three-piece. While the band, particularly in the early days, were anything but forthcoming with the press, a hat interview from an old metal fanzine I dug out of my Boxo random metal shit appears to suggest that the Antichrist EP was in fact originally envisioned as a 8-track full-length entitled Did. You can read this any way you like, but to me, that seems to suggest that some musical differences have begun to emerge between founding duo Hat and Infernus, one that sadly would lead to the legendary vocalist contributing his guttural screams to just one half of this album, with the latter half being performed by a name that would become singularly identified with the Gorgoroth name going forward, owner of the only skullet you can see from fucking space, motherfucking Pest! And with the latter doing an outright impersonation of the former, the difference is borderline imperceptible. Things I dig about this record is the production. It has the raw, treble-heavy timbre endemic to black metal at large, but it's measurably more crisp and pristine than the lo-fi fuckwads who sound like they recorded a chorus of chainsaws on an answering machine inside a trash can adjacent to a blast furnace. All this without sounding inordinately clicky or overproduced like the doldrums of death metal. The net result is that Infernus's guitar carves through the murderous mix, cultivating an unsettling dirge-like atmosphere, particularly on the standout track that appropriately carries the band's namesake. If you can't slay a fire-breathing murder dragon to that shit, it's my solemn duty to inform you that your metal quotient may have lapsed well into the negatives, my friend. Antichrist, at only 6 tracks, is criminally brief, but massively recommended. Next! Now this is where shit gets Gorgoroth. 3 albums in and not 4 full years of the band's lifespan, the Norwegian powerhouse was already down to just 1 original member. Get used to that shit, because going forward, this band would prove to have a cyclonic reputation, and the only man standing tall in the eye of the storm was the intractable Infernus. File that nugget away in the back of your brain box, because once the shit blizzard really gets to flinging the feces around, 2007 or so, that little factoid is going to be busted out of the mothballs for posterity. Sliding into the drum spot behind it all would be a tragic and talented figure by the apropos nomenclature of Grim, formerly of Borknagar fame, and who can be seen posing on the cover of Immortal's iconic Pure Holocaust album, despite having not played drums on the album in question. Fortunately, the crucial ingredient of Gorgoroth's signature sound, now as ever, are those pestilent power chords, and Under the Sign of Hell, for whatever turpitudes the lineup may have suffered, positively sizzles with scorching riffage. Under the Sign of Hell is a malformed little ham beast, easily the band's most experimental, even borderline avant-garde release to that point, yet one that is routinely name-checked regardless as the black metal equivalent to British Steel. This record runs ragged over a bafflingly labyrinthine musical triathlon, from the backmasked atmospheric experimentation of Postludium to the virtual Viking metal of a song whose title is a briar of goofy-ass Norwegianese, but roughly translates to prophetic revelations. Simultaneously accessible and impenetrable, Under the Sign of Hell wears its discordant brilliance on its sleeve and emerges as perhaps the finest single chapter in the Gorgoroth catalog as a result. Recommended, but only if you traverse the caution tape and you're ready for something beyond the formulaic fare of most 90s black metal. Next!
Jo, das war doch wohl klasse. Doch jetzt etwas ganz anderes. Und zwar skandinavischer Death Metal mit Gorgoroth.
Reasonable minds may differ, but in my eyes, from the moment the walking tabloid by the name of Gaahl started railing Gorgoroth in the caboose, the entire machine started to go off the rails, which isn't to say Destroyer is a total loss. Between a convincing cover of the Dark Throne standard Slottet i det fjerne, not even going to pretend I pronounced that correctly, to all original classics like the apocalyptic Open the Gates, Destroyer has selling points to spare, and in my eyes may even rank as one of the all-time misunderstood classics in the Gorgoroth catalog. It lapses into the generic for sure, but the vintage Gorgoroth black metal magic is present and accounted for all the same. But when Destroyer is shit, it's untouchably shit. One sustained tremolo pick guitar note over lurid 90s industrial whisper croaking. If this were 1983 and you were the Sisters of Mercy, that would be edgy as fuck, my friend. But it's 1998 and this fucking eats. You may as well get the bill for room service because Pest was checked right the fuck out by this point. But when Destroyer works, it may well be the last borderline worthy album of the so-called classic Gorgoroth period. Next! Enter the goat fuck that is Gaahl. Now, let me be clear. The real kind of clear, not the fake Obama Neutrogena kind. Incipit Satan is not a bad record. It has its gallingly goofy interludes, but so too does it boast its very own sonic achievements. Sure, every time When Love Rages Wild and My Heart hits the stereo, I collapse into spasms of pants-shitting laughter. Yeah, who kidnapped Danzig? Who bludgeoned him in the throat with a cricket bat? Where's his sinus medication? And why is he being attacked by a chorus of angry bees? Bad blues metal, but ball-bustingly bad black metal. But then you hit one of the album's numerous sublime highlights. Have here are some of the earliest pangs of what today would be described as avant-garde black metal, aka the kind of black metal it's okay for the Ugg Boots Brigade in Portland to professedly enjoy without fear of being exiled from the co-op. But I do have one piercing, earth-rendingly important question. What in front-flipping fuck am I looking at right now? Who let George McFly in a Gorgoroth, folks? And why is he cosplaying as one of the Las Plagas zombies from Resident Evil 4? Suspenders? Black metal suspenders!
How can you trust a man that wears both a belt and suspenders? Man can't even trust his own pants.
Incipit Satan, while imperfect, would be the last time Gorgoroth sounded truly inspired for nearly the next decade. But tragically, the most noteworthy news from the Gorgoroth camp at the time of the album's release was the suicide of Eric, or Grim, if you prefer. In the aftermath of his untimely death, an annual Hole in the Sky festival would be held in his honor over something like 10 years, an immovable testament to his talent and achievement. Godspeed into the hereafter, Grim. God fucking speed.
Black metal was created because we didn't fit into the rest of the metal scene. We don't stand for socialism, we don't stand for democracy. We stand for the individual and the strongest survival.
With Tormentor departing in disgust over a raging scene queen of a bassist they'd recently acquired, Gaahl, and perhaps more importantly, the aforementioned new arrival King's influence came to the fore. Now,
Gaahl joined, the vocalist joined.
You and Gaahl both joined around the same time?
Around the same time, and more or less since then we have been the creative force in the band.
Let us discuss King of Hell for a moment, shall we? Beginning what passes for a career in a post-grunge band, the Norwegian Nickelback, if you will, King saw the writing on the wall adjacent to the glory hole when the black metal gravy train came rolling on through Norway in the late 90s, early 2000s, slapped on the spikes in the face paint, calmly tucked away his day job of being a fucking primary school teacher, and appended the of hell suffix to the latter half of his name. Now, I could regale you for days with first and second-hand stories of King's boundless self-serving insincerity and egotism, and this is coming from someone with an ego so large it has its own zoning laws. In 2012, my ex-girlfriend visited Norway, and of course went to Elm Street Bar in Oslo, arguably the quintessential black metal hangout in Scandinavia, and as humans often have occasion to do, she needed to take a righteous piss. Passing this smoking hot blonde chick who, for some reason, seemed somewhat miffed, she made entry to the ladies' room, and what to her wandering eyes should appear but King of Hell railing a groupie in the rear. The blasé blonde, as it turned out, was his girlfriend, thoroughly oblivious to the cheating ass bandit's extracurricular proctomancy. Yeah, swell guy. In short, King being the apotheosis of poserdom, he did the only thing posers know how to do. Pose! Almost overnight, Gorgoroth became more about holding still for spooky Peter Best photos in the Norwegian wilderness than playing actual black metal. The albums that followed, written almost entirely by King, are among the most generic in the genre. Fast drums, repetitive riffs, Gaahl hiding his subpar screams behind 10 tons of ass Riemann reverb. I'll admit up front, this is the only Gorgoroth record I do not physically own, and it's not because it's so phenomenally objectionable that I can't stomach the thought of surrendering legal tender for its purchase. It's because it's so profoundly unexceptional in every conceivable respect. My short-term memory simply can't be asked with remembering to look for the fucker every time I hit the record store, and neither should yours. Repeat after me. Next!
And always a lot of rumors about Gaahl.
Are they true?
Well, no, of course. Well, maybe some.
With King and Gaahl seizing further control of the Gorgoroth dynasty, founding member Infernus effectively checked the fuck out of the band entirely, becoming a glorified session guitarist. And in the man's defense, Infernus had his own blizzard of bullshit swirling all around him. Immediately following the release of Twilight of the Idols, Infernus was accused of rape by a woman at an after-party. As it turned out, he was in the adjoining room while said rape was taking place, and so he was ultimately charged and convicted of gross negligent rape, serving one of those jaw-dropping Scandinavian prison sentences of all of 4 fucking months. Ah, smell that socialism. Again, in his half-hearted defense, this was small potatoes next to Gaahl's 11-month prison stint in 2002 for literally assaulting a man, not least of which because Gaahl went on to spend 9 months of a 14-month sentence for imprisoning someone on his property for 6 hours and forcing him to drink his own blood. Beefy. But nothing quite reached the levels of notoriety of the infamous Black Mass in Poland in 2004, with King's unbridled songwriting prowess doing the limbo with fucking dust mites. The band picked up the slack through live theater. Taking a page from the gospel according to Blackie Lawless, they impaled actual pig and sheep heads on stage and erected crosses at regular intervals with live nude models drenched in blood secured to them.
Crucified models, fire, blood, sheep heads, barbed wire. Yeah.
Beyond those facts, the show itself was actually fairly unexceptional. In fact, it was rife with technical difficulties. Except that one of the models, having a bag over their head, passed out on stage and required hospitalization, and then the Polish government stepped in, alleging everything from assault to blasphemy. Shame the legal eagles in Poland have never turned that same acid scrutiny to their beloved Witcher franchise. Andrzej Sapkowski might not be raking in millions on the back of Michael Moorcock's intellectual property, but hey, naked chick paid to stand on a cross. Priorities. This was front page headlines in the demented moonscape of Poland throughout the year and made Gorgoroth something of a household name, even hitting the tabloid circuit in Europe and the States. And then it was time to see if they had the melody to back up the melodrama. The answer? A resounding fuck the hell no. Ad Majorem Sathanas, whatever the fuck, is yet another half-hearted nodule of Norse core, bereft of any reason to exist, an absolute insult to the storied legacy of the band that spawned it. Marginally improved when compared to its predecessor, but that margin is razor fucking thin. Some of the doomier passages work, but the vast majority devolves into an auditory fucking chore. But nothing could be more doomed by this point than this particular lineup of the band. With Infernus newly emerged from the slammer and momentarily reinvigorated, he began to attempt to assert more control over the band and was roundly shot down by the Prince of Poserdom and his armchair philosopher of a fucking vocalist. Asserting his frantic, undeserved need for control, King of Hell, along with Gaahl, filed a copyright for Gorgoroth under his own name, effectively wresting control away from its only original member. And then they kicked his ass out. And just when it seemed the Pretense posse would reign eternal, shit got real.
To be quite honest, it's no big change actually kicking him out. It's I've been the driving force musically, and Gaahl has done everything lyrically and vocal lines and everything, so we actually worked as a duo for a decade anyway. We just had a guitar player.
Me and King have been the ones that have shaped this creature in the last 8 years. So otherwise it would have been dead and buried.
But Razorfist, Gaahl is Gorgoroth. Gaahl not only isn't Gorgoroth, given that he sang on fewer than half of the goddamn records, he's not even mostly Gorgoroth, a petulant little prima donna whose chief preoccupation is the act of advertising through litigation. Whether it's a prison stint, a painstakingly timed admission of latent homosexuality, or another prison stint, it's funny how these eye-grabbing headlines tend to hit right around the time Gaahl's ready to pinch out another right melodious turd. And before gay metal heads start rallying around Baron von Batshit, extolling him as an LGBT icon, shattering gay barriers with a single swipe of his spindly chin scruff, can I just say that I have it on good authority that the man is not even sure he's actually gay? In private conversations that I've been personally privy to, the man has all but admitted he's not sure what in the feckless fuck he actually is, a fact that's borne out by comments he's made publicly as well.
I'm not too much into the physical thing. It's more as I've been more into the aesthetics of things.
So the next time you're bewildered as to what precise phylum you happen to belong to, here's a hint, Golf Lundgren. Start it, talentless fucking hack, and work your way down the fucking list, pal. For all his Nietzschean pretense, Gaahl is more about sophistry than artistry.
I have no interest in getting a flock of sheep that's just following me.
He personally took us all aside and critiqued us on what he thinks we could change about our lives and shit. And it's like the thing that was blowing all of our minds, and we all got together the next day and had these little huddles when he wasn't around to talk about it. It was like how right on he was.
I have no interest in getting a flock of sheep.
Guide me.
And he was never about substance. He's about attention. He's about spectacle. He's David Lee Gorgoroth. And when objectively compared to the likes of Hat and Pest, Gaahl's grating croakery cowering beneath cockloads of backmass vocal effects are a hollow approximation to the original vocal brilliance associated with top-shelf Gorgoroth. Fuck Gaahl and the horse face he rode in on. That goes septuple for TC Queen. Long may she reign over the fallow pastures of poserdom. After filing litigation and countersuit at the domineering fuckbags that attempted to steal his band name away, a Norwegian court would ultimately weigh in Infernus' favor, effectively vanquishing TC and the Sunshine Band to the shallow end of the gene pool for all eternity. And the word for that, my friends, is shotgun justice. Next!
We talked last year about the ongoing legal battle you and Gaahl had with Infernus over the band's name. Do you feel confident going in that you and Gaahl will prevail in that matter?
To maintain the interest in it, removing some of the disturbing parties in a way, but yeah, the disturbance kind of attached to to itself. So.
And so it was that after a lengthy pause to backhand a bitch-titty Bergen buttfucker, the one true Gorgoroth would reform with the Skullet Supreme Pest behind the microphone, no less, and unleash the Kaiser of all comebacks, 2009's Quantos Possunt Satanitatem Bestialis. I fucking worship this album, one of the finest major black metal releases of the past decade. Like a breath from the grave, Gorgoroth had emerged revivified and savage. With its landmark black metal monstrosity, Infernus had re-established himself not only as the principal creative force in Gorgoroth, but as one of the all-time unrecognized guitar heroes in all of metal music, something that perhaps shouldn't be as surprising as it is given his primary musical inspirations.
When I'm at home, I don't listen to black metal anyway, so...
What kind of music do you usually listen to?
80s heavy metal.
Since release, this album literally has not left my car until this precise moment. The classic Gorgoroth sound with a more pristine modern production job. Proof positive that you don't need a 4-track soundboard, treble-soaked guitar EQs, or a deaf recording tech to make proper satanic art, because black metal isn't a sound, it's a feeling. And this record has it by the untrammeled fuckload. In short, as the third track on this exceptional album bombastically proclaims, this is the... Rebirth of Gorgoroth! Don't think. Bye.
Do you have any opinion about your former band members? Not specifically those two guys, Gaahl and what's his name?
I'm fond of most of the ex-members.
As was typical of Gorgoroth by this point, the wait for the compulsory follow-up was considerable, with a brief, somewhat misguided stopgap in between. a complete modern re-recording of the classic Under the Sign of Hell album, because why the hell not? As I've said, I don't review compilations, live records, or re-recordings, but in brief summation, it isn't quite as bad as blathermouth.net would have you believe. Some songs sound better than the original, others sound considerably worse, but neither is it one of the band's finer moments regardless. In the aftermath of which it was time for Pest, who by this point was doing session work with one of my favorite American black metal groups by the name of Bloodstained Dusk, to hit the proverbial shit bricks. And as much as I hate to see him go, he's had, shall we say, dedication issues in the past. Not big on touring, generally speaking, which given his rapidly expanding waistline is about the only thing he isn't fucking big on these days. Pest having given Flat Zero notice that he wouldn't be joining Infernus on their South American tour, I believe, he was given the proverbial steel-toed boot, and in walked Hest of famed Norwegian powerhouse Take. Though it was understood the replacement would never be permanent, Hest acquitted himself admirably in a pinch, and he fit Gorgoroth like a glove, better in my opinion than the man who would ultimately provide an actual replacement. Enter Serbian vocalist Ate Rigner of up-and-coming black metal concern Triumphal. Mind you, with his own band, the dude can fucking wail. With Gorgoroth, it sounds like Infernus hooked up with a fucking metalcore vocalist. The fuck am I even listening to? Dillinger Escape Plan? Norma Jean? I take that back. The vocalist in Norma Jean actually varies the dynamics of his fucking voice, monotonously caterwauling over songs too good to be allowed within 1,500 yards of your one-note narcoleptic piss and winery is not fucking black metal, which is utterly baffling because in Triumphal, his vocals are not at all far removed from the majesty of Pest. Sauntering on past the samey scream job, the songs are fucking excellent. Some of the most mercilessly throttling material ever churned out by the uber badass that is Infernus. But Fernie, baby, if you want to re-record an album, maybe with a vocalist who doesn't sound like he's on a Nembutal drip, go ahead and start the fuck with this one. With a bit more vocal variety, this may well have been the finest thing you've ever goddamn recorded. And with that, folks, we close the model tome of Gorgoroth, barons of black metal, peerless innovators in the darkest corners of the metal mythos. I'm Razor Fist Satan.
What is the primary ideologies that fuel Gorgoroth's music?
Jesus!